welcome to Anime Recapped. Today I am going over a 2011 Japanese sci-fi thriller anime series called Steins Gate. It has been rated 12 and contains spoilers, so please watch responsibly. Our story starts with our protagonist Akabe Rintaro up on his roof, phone in hand, debating the assumed infinite nature of the universe. He shuts his phone to the sound of Mayuri, his childhood friend and self-proclaimed hostage. We then follow Akabe and Mayuri into Dr. Nakabachi's conference on time machine development, where in conversation with Mayuri, we are first acquainted with what Akabe dubs the organization, which at this point seems no more than another one of Akabe's theatrics. Mid-conversation, the sound of a large crash from up above interrupts the pair, prompting Akabe to look to the roof where he finds a large mechanism and a woman signing an X with her hands. Simultaneously, his phone starts to vibrate, forcing him to return to Mayuri. Being broke, she needed Akabe to buy her a rare collectible, which turned out to be an exceptionally rare metal upa, which she loses just as quickly. Akabe returns to the lecture, where he creates a scene and is swiftly escorted outside by a newcomer, Makase Kurisu, who asks him what he was trying to tell her moments ago. Akabe, having no recollection of this event, stated that she was out of her mind, at least until he recognized her as a published researcher. Upon recognizing her, he suspects her to be part of the organization, confusing Makase, exclaiming that she won't ensnare him with her tactics. Akabe maniacally laughs and runs off. As he escapes Mikase, Akabe receives a video text message, which upon opening, turns up static on the black screen. Mayuri rejoins him quickly after, and the two talk until they hear the distressing scream of a man. Akabe instructs Mayuri to go outside, while he runs up to investigate the situation. He follows the scream to an open closet, where Makase lays lifeless in a pool of her own blood. Mortified, he stares at her corpse as his phone vibrates. We then skip to a breathless Akabe outside the building with Mayuri, to whom he informs of the murder that took place on the 8th floor. He types the same information in a text, and prepares to send it to his lab tech Daru. However, upon hitting send, he experiences an odd sensation as he unknowingly changes world lines. He runs back to the foot of the building, which was suddenly empty. Taken aback, he shakes Mayuri, trying to figure out what happened and where everyone went, only to find a large object lodged into the building. The team groups up at the Future Gadget Lab, where Daru explains that the lecture had been cancelled, conflicting with the events we've witnessed so far. Akabe then leads Daru to the scene of the crash of what is then identified as a satellite. They converse in the elevator where he asks him about the text he sent, which it turned out was sent a week ago, leading him to believe his text traveled backwards in time. As the elevator took them to their designated floor, and the doors opened, Akabe's eyes landed on a very much alive Makase Kurisu. Shocked to find her alive, Akabe follows her into a lecture on the possibility of time travel, where she ridicules the idea of time travel, likening it to the Boogaman, which riles up Akabe, prompting her to humiliate him comprehensively. Collecting provisions from Luca, Akabe meets Suzuha, a new hire by his landlord Yugo, or as he calls him, Mr. Braun, for his electronics shop. Sleuthing the web, Akabe investigates the altered events, quickly stumbling upon an individual named John Titor who pegs CERN as an organization monopolizing the time machine market, keeping it from the public to remain unchecked. Out in public, Akabe meets a quiet individual taking pictures of him, Mocha, who asks him for any information he might have on an outdated, retro IBM 5110 PC. While experimenting with a machine they dubbed the Phone Wave, Akabe and Daru discover that the banana they put into the makeshift microwave disappeared, and appeared reattached to its bunch, turned into green goop as Makase appears at the lab. Akabe convinces Makase to join the lab as a member to participate, where they succeed in sending another email to the past, leading Kurisu to exit in disbelief. Learning of the Large Hadron Collider and CERN's use of micro-black holes for their time travel program, Akabe asks Daru to hack into CERN to learn more about it. They uncover that CERN has been involved in top-secret research experimenting on humans that has resulted in casualties. However, the team hits a dead end when they come across encrypted code that they find out cannot be deciphered without an IBM 5010. After some investigation, Akabe learns from the maid cafe owner, Forrest, that her family had donated an IBM 5010 to Luca's family shrine, from where Akabe manages to borrow it. With Makase's help, Akabe hauls the machine into the lab. On the way, they encounter Suzuha, who recognizes Makase and warns Akabe to be wary of her. After collecting the necessary parts, Daru gets to work, and swiftly manages to get the system running. Upon decrypting the CERN files, Akabe and company learn that their human experiments were found dead, with their soft tissue turned to a gelatinous state by being squeezed at a molecular level passing through the micro-black hole. Undeterred, he aims to perfect the phone wave. After some deliberation, the team decides on dubbing their messages to the past as D-mails. The group then performs various experiments to understand the scope and rules of sending messages to the past. The next day, Mocha finds her way to the lab to inspect the IBN 510 she was searching for, seeking to borrow it. During her visit, the squad does little to stop themselves from conversing on their secret project, forcing Akabe to induct her as the 5th lab member. Daru then updates the phone wave's firmware. Akabe experiments further by attempting to change history, sending himself the winning lottery numbers a week ago. By sending the text, Akabe inadvertently changes world lines to one where the D-mail lead to Luca buying the ticket, but only to discover the numbers he punched in were accidentally wrong. Akabe learns that no one else retained memories from the change in world lines except him, calling the ability reading Steiner. Delving deeper into the experimentation, Mocha sends a D-mail to the past, shifting Akabe to a world line where no one except him has any recollection of her. Luca eavesdrops on their conversation in the lab about the time machine, and asks that they send her mother a D-mail to change her diet before Luca was born in an attempt to change the baby's gender. This leads to Luca becoming a lab member. In the new world line, Luca is a girl. However, the IBN is no longer in the lab's possession. Initially, Akabe suspects the IBN is missing because Mocha stole it. However, he finds that she isn't able to find it either. Faris, Akabe's friend and Mayuri's co-worker at the maid cafe, finds out about the phone wave and requests to send a D-mail without divulging its contents. Accepting Faris as a member, he sends the D-mail, which causes Mo culture to disappear from Akihabara, deducing that the changes from the texts have caused a butterfly effect beyond their control. Suzuha reveals her reason for coming to Tokyo, which is finding her father, admitting that if she doesn't manage to find him, she will leave the next day. A threatening text finds its way to Akabe, warning him that he's being watched, along with the picture of a gelatinous treat. After Suzuha fails to show up at her farewell party, Akabe sends himself a D-mail, shifting himself to a world line where Suzuha stayed a little longer to find her dad. Akabe discovers that the CRT TV in the electronics shop underneath has been a crucial component in being able to send D-mails. Makase theorizes a better way to use the phone wave by sending a person's consciousness to leap into the past instead of texts, which have unintended consequences. Suzuha alleges that Makase works for SERN, which Makase denies. Akabe receives another threatening text, this time with a severed, bloodied doll head. Fearing for Mayuri's safety, he returns to the lab, where he finds that unbeknownst to them, the lab has been connected to CERN's network, utilizing CERN's LHC to compress memories to size manageable by D-mail. Makase's upgraded leap machine is complete. However, it is only capable of sending memories up to 2 days in the past. Akabe suggests they make their findings public. As the lab prepares for the party, Suzuha lashes out at Makase, claiming she isn't the innocent girl she pretends to be, and will do horrible things in the future. Suzuha learns of CERN being connected to the lab, upon which she leaves, shocked and frightened. Soon after, Mocha arrives at the lab with armed men, introducing herself as a rounder for CERN. Deeming Mayuri to be useless to their cause, Mocha shoots her. Swiftly after Mayuri's demise, Suzuha dashes to the lab, confronts Mocha, buying Makase enough time to send Akabe back in time. Expelling everyone from the lab, Akabe begins his search for Mayuri. Akabe finds Mayuri and attempts to escape with her, but the train is stopped. Attempting to make a getaway, Mayuri is ran over by Mocha. Akabe once again makes a time leap. This time he finds Mayuri quicker and attempts to flee to the subway, but once again fails to thwart her death. By now, her death feels as though a foregone conclusion. Continuing his unfruitful efforts to prevent Mayuri's death, Akabe learns that the reason the lab was targeted was because of their plan to publicly announce their findings. Failing continuously, Akabe is approached by Makase, who devises a system to communicate after leaping. Suzuha approaches the pair, explaining that in order to save Mayuri, they need to escape the Alpha World Line attractor field to the Beta World Line, Akabe's original one where Mayuri still lives. She reveals herself as John Titor from the year 2036. Suzuha explains CERN's totalitarian world in 2036. She reveals the broken satellite to be a time machine, which she discovers has broken down as a result of a storm the previous night. Akabe travels 2 days before the completion of the time leap machine and informs the group of their situation. Daru is then tasked with fixing the time machine while everyone else helps Suzuha look for her father. She also gives Akabe a device to keep track of the differences between world lines, hitting a dead end on information on the client who got the pin made. Akabe travels back in time, only to find out it was Daru. He reveals that Suzuha's time machine can only travel backwards in time. Once the repairs are made, we learn that Daru is actually Suzuha's father, and she travels back to 1975 with the divergence meter unchanged. Yugo delivers a letter from Suzuha in the year 2000, revealing she had failed her mission and committed suicide. Akabe attempts to prevent this from happening using D-mail, shifting to a new world line, where he learns that Suzuha died of an illness instead. With a changed value on the divergence meter, Akabe learns that despite the different world line, Mayuri's death is still set in stone, albeit postponed by a day. Makase deduces that undoing the past emails might get them their IBN 510 back, which they can use to delete CERN's records that tip them to the lab. Akabe starts by convincing Forrest to send herself a D-mail, talking her out of the previous one. However, the IBN 510 still wasn't within grasp. With one D-mail down, Akabe moves on to Luca, attempting to somehow convince her of originally being a boy, which was distressing for her since it would mean returning to a world line where she couldn't pursue her affection for Akabe, finally mending the lapse in their relationship after an attempted date in exchange for the D-mail. Luca agrees and the world line shifts to one where Luca is a boy. With that done, Akabe moves on to Mocha. He arrives at her apartment only to learn that she'd committed suicide. Traveling back in time, he finds her a nervous wreck. Akabe grabs Mocha's phone and sends a D-mail from it, but finds out she had lied about the contents of her message. Akabe informs her of her future suicide and sends the D-mail, only for nothing to change. He figures he would have to send the D-mail from FB himself to get her to believe its authenticity. Feeling betrayed, Mocha tells him where to find the IBN 510. Despite knowing the location of the machine, however, Makase advises against trying to acquire it. They stake out the location and find it being passed along to many people, one of whom was Yugo, who when confronted, reveals himself to be FB, and a rounder for CERN so he could protect Ni. Yugo kills Mocha and then himself for failing the mission, prompting Akabe to use his phone to cancel Mocha's D-mail. Returning to a world line where they both are alive, and the IBN 510 is in the lab's possession. Akabe comes to the realization that by following through with this, the world line would shift to one where Makase is dead. To avoid a future where Makase dies, Akabe refrains from hacking into CERN to remove their information on the lab. Akabe begins thinking of a way to save Mayuri without having to lose Makase in the process, all the while being too afraid to tell Makase the facts. As Mayuri's time of death approaches, Akabe once again fails to stop her death. After traveling back, Makase makes Akabe reveal the crossroads he's at. Mayuri acknowledges Akabe's suffering, despite not being told anything, while Makase visits her destined site of death should the Beta world line manifest. Makase reveals she still has recollection of her stabbing, as well as Akabe's failed attempts at saving Mayuri's life. She suggests saving Mayuri over herself, but Akabe refuses. Preparing to make the leap again, Makase stops him, worried about how witnessing Mayuri's death over and over again might affect his mental state. Upon deciding to save Mayuri over Makase, Akabe confesses his love for Makase, who responds by kissing him. The group deletes the D-mail from the CERN network. The world line shifts back to Beta. After getting rid of the phone wave, Akabe is contacted by Suzuha, who needed his help to prevent World War III. She reveals that the way to stop World War III would be to enter a world line called Steins Gate, which would require preventing Makase's death. Akabe travels to the past with Suzuha before Makase's death, hiding in the room where the scene of her death would unfold. Akabe attempts to save her, but ends up stabbing her in the process. Devastated, he prepares to give up but is slapped by Mayuri, who convinces him to keep going. Suzuha reveals in a video from his future self that in order to stop Makase's death, this failure was necessary, and provides the key to make it happen. In order to accomplish this, he would have to fool his past self into believing Makase has died. With a substitute for Makase's blood, Akabe and Suzuha return to the day of Makase's death. Akabe acquires the metal Upa for himself in order to prevent Nakabachi's paper from being destroyed. Nearing Makase's death, he finds that the fluid in his gadget has dried up, and urges Nakabachi into stabbing him. After knocking Makase out, Akabe uses his blood to recreate her stab wound, successfully fooling his past self. Suzuha disappears since she doesn't yet exist in the Steins Gate world line. Akabe interacts with Makase, who has retained some memories of other world lines. After 2 months, the group is invited by Forrest to Los Angeles. The subsequent night, Makase and Akabe discuss the dreams she has of her past world lines, in particular the romance they shared. Akabe recognizes someone who looked like Suzuha and pursues her until he discovers his phone is uncharged. He makes his way back, and is found by Makase, stranded with him without gas in her car. While they wait for assistance, they discuss the matter of their romance in prior world lines, prompting Akabe to once again confess his feelings for Makase, who tells him to close his eyes. And that's this anime recapped. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.